to another edition of the Creative Push. Today we have Kamaal Malak here to talk to us about creativity. He is a producer, a songwriter, and an audio architect. Tell us a little bit more about you.
Hey, Sherry. It's good to be here. I'm originally from Philadelphia, PA. That's where I was born and raised, and that's where I started my music journey, honing in on the bass guitar. It was my first love. Philadelphia is known for bass players. I mean, it's bass is in the water, from world-renowned jazz artists all the way to funk artists. So I honed my chops there and just became a part of the Philly scene, or what you can call the Philly sound. There's a lot of popular groups coming out of Philadelphia now, one being The Roots.
Tell us a little bit about where you've been, what you've done, your past projects, what got you to where you are today here in Nashville.
I learned the bass guitar and was doing a lot of songwriting and playing in bands in Philadelphia. I felt as though I needed to expand my horizon because Philadelphia is known for music and musicians, but they don't have a lot of music industry there at the time. I had the choice to either go to New York or California. And I had family in California, so I went for it, moved to LA. And when I got to LA, it's brand new on the scene, but I was just hungry. I put myself in the right places, the studios, clubs. I joined the Musicians Union, which got me a lot of work, video work actually, in movies and television, and continued to hone my songwriter and producing skills. I work with a group called Rose Royce, also a singer named Donna DeLory, who's Madonna's background singer, and she tours and dances and choreographs with Madonna. One day I was playing in a music store, Nadine's Music, which is right on Santa Monica Boulevard, right next to Paramount Studios. And Paramount at that time was huge for rap because the rap scene was getting larger and larger. I met a producer named Sir Jinx, who's Ice Cube's cousin, and did a lot of projects with him. Had me come in and they had turntables and say like, okay, put a bass line to this. And I didn't know what it was going to finally be, but I played on a lot of tracks where a lot of them ended up on some pretty big rap albums. And also some pop artists too, like CeCe Peniston. I played on some of her records. And then the music scene kind of changed, and I always have believed in being where it is, being where the music is. So at the time, Atlanta was just jumping off the charts. You could name 10 Grammy Award-winning artists coming out of Atlanta at the time, from TLC, Arrested Development, Outkast, Tony Braxton, and LaFace Records was huge at the particular time. They had a lot of artists moving there, and the scene was just really, really growing. So I moved to Atlanta. I didn't know anyone there. I knew this was the place to be. So I put an ad in the Creative Loafing, which is like the LA Weekly or the Nashville Scene magazine here. It's a networking / what's going on in the industry here. I put the ad in. I only put this on the ad. The funk is here. After about a week of crazy calls, I got a call from a DJ based out of Macon, and I invited him up to my studio. We really hit it off. And he told me when we were sitting there listening to music, and I was playing music, and he was playing some of his music, he said, hey man, I know a guy named David Norman. You guys would hit it off. You guys look alike. You got dreadlocks. And he's doing a lot of music. And he gave me David's number. So I called David, and David was real cool. He's like, yeah, come down to the studio. I'm engineering the Arrested Development album, Zingalama Dooney, the second album. And I came down to the studio, and it was one of those classic stories, being in the right place at the right time. They just received the 2 Grammys and 2 American Music Awards and ready to do a world tour. And they needed a bass player. They had asked me to go on tour and be a part of the group. From there, it's just like history. My first gig was in South Africa playing for Nelson Mandela's inauguration and meeting Nelson Mandela. That was the very first show. And then we joined the Peter Gabriel World Mad Tour, and David Letterman, Leno, Arsene, all the shows. That's how I got my start with Arrested Development, and really catapulted me to a place of recognition.
What brought you to Nashville?
The music scene had changed in Atlanta. And at the time, Nashville wasn't on my radar because it was known for country music. But Atlanta, the music scene had changed a lot. I felt as though I had the most opportunity to succeed because I'm a songwriter, I'm a producer, and I write lyrics and melodies. And being with Arrested Development, I was at the highest level of hip hop music. So I wanted to really write songs and collaborate a lot. And just doing my research, Nashville is a collaborative town. A lot of people move here to collaborate and songwrite, and it's the hub now. It's where it is. So I moved here and immediately hit it off with everyone because Nashville's a pretty kind town. Kind meaning it's easy to connect, easy to network, easy to collaborate because it still has that Southern kind of hospitality feel, but it is a major music industry here. And so I hit the ground running. I met a guy named Henry Hicks, who is the CEO and founder of the National Museum of African American Music. At that time, in 2015, he was just starting funding. It was just an idea and a plan in his head. And fast forward, the museum just opened up in February. They're at the 60 million fundraising point, and Amazon just donated $1 million to the museum. I really look forward to the future because it's changed Nashville. It's putting more diverse music from the Black community on the country scene.
Can you explain to me what is your favorite thing to do as a creative?
Songs are first to me. You know, I love songs, songwriting and composing, but I really got deep into film production and writing music for film. Also becoming a videographer and director because I just loved matching those two elements. And I tell everyone that there's only 4 inches from here to here, from your eyes to your ears. And that's pretty close. So they are very, very close as far as creativity. Say music first and then visuals. I've gotten heavily into design, graphic design, and motion graphics, and podcasting. I'm directing several podcasts now.
Tell me about your technique with songwriting. How do you start? How do you get motivated? What is your technique?
My motivation for songs and songwriting, it comes from multiple sources. Sometimes it starts with just an idea, a dream. You know, in the middle of the night, I'll wake up and have a melody in my head or a bass line or a chord progression. And I believe in songwriting tools. When I first started, there were very limited amount of tools to get the inspiration recorded. Now we have synthesizers, we have sequencers, we have MIDI, we have digital audio workstations. And so I resort a lot of times to my tools, which could inspire a song from just the sound, from a chord, from a bass line, from a guitar riff. I get my inspiration from multiple sources.
How would you define creativity?
Creativity is life. To me, without life, you don't have anything. If your heart is beating, you have creativity. I hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm not a creative person, but your heart's beating and your heart beats to a rhythm. And so rhythm creates vibration, and vibration is life everywhere. So that's my definition of it.
What inspires you to create?
Experience, because I can go from past to present, writing a melody or a lyric from the past. And as you know, what we're going through now in life with politics, with religion, with race, there's so much subject matter to write about, so much content to create with. That's how I get inspiration for my creativity.
Do you ever get stuck? And if you do, how do you pull yourself out of that?
I always get stuck. I think life would be pretty traumatic if everything was going fast forward all the time without pause. So yes, I get a writer's block or creative block. When I do get that, I resort to my tools. So I'm very confident I won't be in that space of block for too long.
So what do you see in your future?
I see a lot of creativity. I'm getting a lot of creative briefs for movies, television commercials, and television series, radio, internet podcasts. I feel as though I have written so many songs and so many ideas that I find myself now going back to a lot of my works that I've done previously, because a lot of times there's not a lot of time to create something new. So I would resort to just what I've created. And if it fits the description of what's needed, then I just put it together, may do some tweaking, some remixing. I'm finding myself now resorting to my library of content now.
As a creative person, is there anything odd, strange, or different that you collect?
I've been heavily into gemstone. I have a gemstone jewelry line called KM Gem Jewelry. Gemstones are not only stones, but they're also inspiration. They also have healing properties. And so I collect all types of gemstones now for my jewelry line. When you see my collection, you might think, wow, this is weird, because I have gemstones everywhere.
Are there any things that you haven't learned yet that you'd like to learn?
Yes. Wow. I have been wanting, and now I'm doing, and studying and recording classical music. I've always wanted to have the ability to sight read music. Coming up, a lot of the music that I do and a lot of music that I'm inspired by is not written on sheet music on the staffs. So now in studying classical music, and as a matter of fact, I just got a creative brief for a television series that actually wanted classical music in one of their composers that they used as a reference was Bach. So I have a lot of Bach music now that I'm studying, and I'm learning to sight read and learning syncopation from, and just the beauty of classical music. I wasn't exposed to it a lot. I am really, really enjoying it.
How has the pandemic affected your business?
It has affected it. It has stopped a lot of direct communication, in-person communication. I've had to find new ways to connect with clients, to connect with work. It's been a blessing in disguise because my communication skills have had to change. I had to learn the web. I had to learn podcasting. I had to learn how to communicate through our devices now, because that physical contact is kind of limited now. It's kind of changed paradigm now for everyone. We have to communicate in a different way.
Kamaal, I've always noticed every time I've hung out with you, you always have a really unique style and you always have a cool hat. Give me an overview of where those come from and what your love is for wearing hats.
I would say it started with my father. He was a stylish cat. He was a stylish dude. When I look at my pictures as a kid, we are always in suits and ties and always dressed up. And we had play clothes, but I think all the pictures where we were just tied down. It gave me a sense of style. It gave me a sense of presentation. He was always like, look, you only get the chance to make one impression, make it the best. So my brother and my sisters picked up on that. And my mother was actually a seamstress. She was a seamstress in high school as a vocation. And my brother picked it up. I went to music and my brother went to fashion and design. And my fashion comes from my brother because he has a clothesline called Threads by Khalil. And he makes hats. And he's also a fashion designer too. He not only makes hats, but he makes everything from pants to shirts to tops to all types of clothing. Right now, he's focused on hats. And that's where I get my hat thing from. He's just really unique with his designs. He came out last winter with a hat that's made out of polyurethane. So they're very warm. So I have a lot of those types of hats. And I love performing in hats. I like rocking his design. I've kind of gotten known for my hat collection, which is inspired and designed by my brother, Khalil.
Do you have any current projects that you want to share with us?
Yes. I have a podcast that's coming out called How I Create Beats. It's the process that we talked about earlier. What inspires me, what tools did I use, what my concept is for creating music and creating beats. That's where my focus is now. I'm also doing a lot of film and television, composing and sound design.
Where can people find your work?
KME Nashville.com, and that's KM Entertainment.
Thank you so much for your time, and thanks for doing this interview with me.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. All right, Sherry.
All right. Thank you, my dear.
All right, see you.
I'll see you.